And we did it. We're hooked up. It's the very beginning. It's called the Aquarian Age and the Awakening. And I think that it's one of the reasons that I was interested in Kundalini in the beginning, from the beginning. As much as I love being in my body, and I love the challenge and the way in which my body is used as a tool to find what my mind tends to do. I began to learn very early on in Kundalini practice that I get angry when I'm challenged and I blame other people. And so it was definitely a moment of this is someone else's fault that this is difficult. You know, even if it's just me by myself with my hands up for a period of time, it showed me that my response said, the teacher told me to do this, or the sequence told me to do this, and this is difficult and I don't like it, and therefore I don't like the teacher, or I don't like whatever. And I could see how that would play out in my life. And it gave me a chance and a practice to work that out, to change that pattern, which is so phenomenal. But it's much larger than that. And the events of the last, let's just put it in a large bucket and say 3 months, or even the last 10 years. So we have a climate crisis. We have all been sheltering in place for a virus we're trying to understand. We have protests going on for a history that is unredeemed, and like just systematic wrongdoing on so many levels. How do we confront and support this situation has been written and provided, and it's the reason for these practices and these techniques. So we can start with an understanding that the Piscean age was dominated by machines, by hierarchies, and the Aquarian age is ruled by awareness, information, and energy. In the Aquarian age, the greatest power will be your word, your consciously projected words. And this change is radical, not incremental. It is a simultaneous change in the inner and the outer world. The mind is changing its sensitivity, its basic frequency, and its functioning. Our lifestyle is changing its sense of time, space, relatedness, and relevancy. And what's remarkable to me is to have this written and to have this provided, and then to read it now and say, yes, this is absolutely the way that we think about one another, the words that we use to describe our experience of another person, of a situation that surrounds us, that description, those words, that becomes our reality. So if we can get inside and understand the home of those words, the source of those words, we can begin to change those. So in the age we're leaving behind, it was central, even a sacred task, to find and gain access to the right information. So in the Piscean age, the best description, the best way to think about this is to think about a university setting, a school of any kind, that from grade 1 to grade 2, these are the things you must know. And there's a gatekeeper that will test you, and perhaps you'll gain entrance to the next level, or perhaps you'll have to go back. But this is what you need to know. It's already prescribed. If you have access to the books or to the teachings, you can go forward. If you don't have access, if you're not literate, you can't make progress. If you don't know our means of exchange, then you are not allowed. And so that hierarchy was established for 1,000 years, and generation after generation after generation went through This understanding of I have to know this to know that. I have to know this to know that. We had small societies. I got into this school, not that school. Gatekeepers, hierarchies, walls and boundaries. And yet last week, I said, Maddox, what did you do during studio time? Oh, there was this great lecture at MIT that he does not have. At third grade, he came out. He came out of that structure. So the last gatekeeper he saw was his third grade teacher. He said he couldn't do math, right? But we left that structure. And the age of Aquarius is speaking directly to the fact that I can talk to you wherever you are right now. And you can then Google age of Aquarius and you can look it up for yourself. That I am not the gatekeeper of this information, that even Wikipedia is not the gatekeeper, that it's up to us now to access as much information as we can, but then the work becomes, how do I discern what's true? The work of the Aquarian age is discernment and choice. Because I have access to 16 different online courses that I may want to know more about, and yet I can't fit them all into my life right now. Or I have access to them and I just can't quite stay focused because, oh, but then there's this great YouTube video about kittens. And then there's a YouTube video with Simon Sinek. And then I'm going to go to Netflix. And then I'm going to go do an XPT. And it's just a very relentless experience to have access to all this information. Our nervous system hasn't evolved to handle this situation yet. So, having seen that this was coming, the Aquarian age, great knowledge about human potential was guarded by secrecy and layers of initiation. And that secrecy of the Piscean age, those little memberships and that hierarchy, it's actually quite a fundamentally clear way to learn. Because it's not handing you an enormous textbook that's not even bound, that's just sort of sheets everywhere and say, here's biology. And it can feel like that. Our lives can feel very accessible, full of choice, and completely overwhelming. What we need now is an ability to both create a little bit of challenge, to strain our nervous system, but a way that we can control and that we can then have a response with our mind that we bring down so that we can handle the daily stress of everything we have access to. And that's what our practice is doing. So as much as we're sitting with these circles through our arms, the circles are creating momentum, they're creating strength, they're creating opening, but they're also challenging us. They're saying, can I stay focused? They're saying, wow, this is asking a lot of my system right now. I want to stop. I want to walk away. I want to think about something else. I want to numb myself. All the things that we need to respond to the climate, to respond to Black Lives Matter, to respond to Me Too, to respond to the virus, it just feels like calamity after calamity. But if we have built sort of these small calamities every day on our mat, just 3 minutes of calamity at a time, we realize we can handle one at a time. Okay? Our goal here and the way forward through the Aquarian age is to know that we are whole. And we are absolutely connected to our source and ourself. Otherwise, the marketeers make it possible to say, oh, you don't know enough about fly fishing, and you're incomplete without knowledge about how to make candied apples, right? That these are facetious examples, perhaps. Maybe both of those topics are hot for you. But as a teacher, I can see here are 54 courses to improve your yoga teaching. And I think, wow, those all look very interesting and quite necessary. I must be incomplete because I don't know those things. That sense of being incomplete is very dangerous in this time. You are whole. Everything you need to know is already in the self. And now we can access the self, and the access of the whole self meeting the whole world is a great sensation of safety instead of being overwhelmed. We need to start from a sense of being whole. So if we look back, the Piscean sense of religion was, I petition to an external God. Dear one, save me now. I am praying for an intervention from something that is outside of myself to notice me and then to help me. And so we could think about the wholeness of the universe and the wholeness of God and Allah and the wholeness of those texts and those traditions. And traditionally, we were outside of that. And we could be exiled. My father was removed from 3 churches for heresy. and so there is that we've had these previous boundaries that says you are not included. I'm sorry, you tried very hard, but your SAT scores simply weren't high enough. You don't get to come in. Well, now we have access to information, and in that, you can imagine that because you have access through so many things on your phone, they are all yours. You are not in any state of shortage. You will be no better a human being for an Oxford degree. You will know more about a certain area, but we are fulfilled internally through ourselves, through our actions, through our thoughts. And that's such a balm in the midst when there is so much clamor for your attention. So there will be an age, the Piscean age that we came from, which is very mechanistic, and we shift into a very energetic, information, learning-based experience of ourselves. And that is a radical change. It is an upset, and that upset is creating a real lockdown from our governments and from older systems and within ourselves. So one of the greatest things about Kundalini, I can't tell you, since we've gone into the quarantine and more people are accessing the classes online, the most common beginner comment that I receive is, it looks interesting, but it looks weird, and I don't think I want to do it. So the Piscean age had, this is what I do, this is what I know, and I know that if I repeat it, I go forward. Right now, we have access to wildly new bodies of information. Your heart is not a pump. It's not. We could have that conversation. But to get there is a wild leap out of past information into a new possibility. Kundalini puts us in a physical experience of things we're unfamiliar with, but over time we get okay with this. It can be opening and closing your hand. And we say, that's interesting at first. I'm listening to the protests, but now they've gone on for a while. I'm not interested anymore. We stay and we grow interested in what's new to us. And we grow capable of what's new to us. And we move through the layers of mind within us that come from our past, that have been taught to us, and we have laid them down, and we have come to rely on them. And these simple, unfamiliar movements open us to paradigms that we could not have handled previously. They would have been denied. They would have been, that's heresy, that's not possible, that's not in me at all. But the Aquarian age says you are whole and you are infinite. If you're closing out this gesture, imagine how many ideas you are saying, I can't handle that. You may not change your gender. You not change the pronoun that I address you with. You may not change my understanding of race. I don't do that, right? That's a very old, difficult, dangerous state of mind. We have access to energy, and energy is pliable, and we are pliable. And when we apply ourselves, our wholeness, and this energetic pliability, we become possible, we become inclusive, and we change. And it's very radical. It's inner, and the inner work changes the outer work. We change our perception. And so each person, as it's written here, accepts the responsibility to elevate and manage his or her or their own state of awareness and to deal with widespread and constant stress. All of this change stresses us out. The change stresses me out. But when I find that there is a constancy in the change, I'm changing my hands, I'm changing these circles, I find a steady breath, and I find a steady state of mind. These practices are given to us to develop a neutral state of mind. And the neutral state of mind says there is possibility here. If I can't find a neutral state of mind, if I can't find a state of regeneration, I'm going to be stuck, and I'm really going to be stuck in suffering. But when I can build awareness, and when I can build change, and when I can feel the discomfort and go, wow, I bet a lot of people are feeling discomfort right now. But I'm going to stay, and I'm going to offer them support. Discomfort? Yeah, man, I feel you. This is crazy. But now I know you feel this and I feel this. We go forward together. You right now listening here are healers and are leaders. There is a collective stamina that's required, and we build every day. And that stamina that you make, the space that you hold, holds the door possible for others. Depression and fatigue-related psychological illnesses will rise at accelerated rates. That this is the challenge of the Aquarian age, this overwhelming uncertainty about who we are can be exhausting. And so we're not only building the stamina to move forward, but Yoga Nidra is showing up in the yogic world so prevalently. We're becoming so skillful at rest, because rest and the ability to regenerate is going to be the counterpoint to all the advancing of our information, our awareness, our discernment. We need to rest, to slow down, to learn, to listen. When we can do that for ourselves, and when we teach that to our families, times of candles, longer, quieter meals, conversations, intimacy, making what we know to be personal. This becomes so important at this period of time. So I'm going to tell you, this is the last paragraph here. All these examples highlight the necessity for a potent and practical technology to generate the inner energy necessary to survive and excel under this pressure. Energy is, quote unquote, the capacity for action or accomplishment. It's the effort of the mind and the body that allows us to exert movement from a current state to a desired state. I know that I feel stuck in what I know. Adam and I learned so much as he develops his understanding of medicine, of the human body, of our understanding of virus. And then you hear the news and they're in conflict. What do I do with the fact that everything I was taught in school before this is in conflict with what's being offered to me now. That the cells in my body communicate through light. And when those cells can't communicate anymore, when they're isolated, they lose their ability to know who they are in community, and they begin to replicate. And that isolated cell in its replication, it's the beginning of cancer. We know this, or some, but it's contrary to what we had known. And the question is, do I have the inner stamina to change my mind? And that can be learning to see a different person in a different way. It can be learning to see a friend's daughter and address her as they, because that's what she asks of me. That's what they ask of me. They ask me to grow. And am I willing to support their desire to lead me forward? We must consciously direct the consciousness of the mind. We release the energy we need to excel and balance ourselves with an inner technology that can alter the frequency of our mind and the state of our brain. This is our sadhana. This is our practice. I'll answer you in a second, Jordan. We don't need new choices. We're flooded with choices. We need an elevated capacity to make choices. We don't need more information. We need the wisdom to use the information that's becoming available. We need the freedom of mind to evolve ourselves. We don't need another religion. We need the experience of a dharma that creates spiritual fitness so that we can act believably, so that we can act with integrity. Spiritual fitness includes the body, the mind, and the spirit. May they all be willing. Those are the first 2 pages of the Aquarian Teacher, the Kundalini Teacher's Manual. Everything else that follows, and the second volume, the appendices that have the Kriyas, and then the Advanced Teacher Training. Everything that follows is about how do we create a response, a practice that allows us to handle exactly the circumstances we are in. So keep coming to practice and know that this is a time of information, a time where there is a necessity for awareness and discernment. And this is a time for us to stay open, as we had talked about with Michael Singer, to stay with our practice, to stay with ourselves, and to know that we are whole. We're not seeking information to fix ourselves or to be worthy. We're simply learning how is it that we can best participate in our body, at a cellular level, at a spiritual level, in our community. And what do we pass on? What's your legacy? Send me questions. I will see you soon. What I found, and I sent it out in the newsletter this morning, yoga is going to become very personal. The future of yoga is personal. I believe this. Find a teacher. Follow, listen. Not saying it's me. Lots of teachers. Listen to them. And if you are a teacher, since we all are, share what you know. The parts that are new can be scary to share. I hear you. I hear you. Make yourself available with what you know. This is how we lead our way forward. So I will be digital. I will be available online as much as I can. And then I will offer individual and group work because it's deep and it's personal. And this is how I can be of use going forward. So contact me, work with me if you want to more closely, or keep working in every day The resources are there with me and with many other wonderful teachers. If you want other teachers, say, Martha, you're okay, but you're not totally spot on for me. I'll help you find. There are so many other people. Now we work together. Sat Nam, loves.